Since 2016, Nigeria and India have been taking turns to be the world's poverty capital. In 2016, according to the World Poverty Clock, India had over 75 million people living in extreme poverty, while Nigeria had about 46 million. In 2017, India's extremely poor people reduced to 70 million, while Nigeria's increased to almost 48 million. The next 3 years after that, from 2018 to 2020, India still led as the world's poverty capital. The tides, however, changed in 2021 when Nigeria overtook India as the poverty capital and currently has over 70 million people living in extreme poverty. This video looks at both countries and takes you through how they became the poverty capitals of the world and why. Take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Help us achieve our goal and learn at the same time. Let's get into the video. To understand how these countries became the poverty capitals of the world, we need to first understand how it's determined. One of the main metrics used to determine the poverty capital of the world is the absolute number of people living in extreme poverty in a country. Extreme poverty is defined as living under $1.90 a day, which is a very paltry sum when you think about it. Even in developing economies, $1.90 can barely feed a full-grown adult. Another metric used to determine the poverty capital of the world is the percentage of poor people relative to the country's population. How far off the country is from achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, is also very important in determining this. So, what led up to this? History: British colonialism. One similarity between India and Nigeria is that they were both British colonies. Britain occupied India for about 89 years between 1858 and 1947. For Nigeria, they lasted from 1900 to 1960, after which Nigeria gained its independence. There have been a lot of conversations about the impact of colonialism on third world countries. A paper by scholars at the University of Tennessee talks about the impact of this on development in Africa. One of the points made was the mode of operation of colonial powers. They said, colonialism aims to exploit the physical, human, and economic resources of an area to benefit the colonizing nation. European powers pursued this goal by encouraging the development of a commodity-based trading system, a cash crop agriculture system, and by building a trade network linking the total economic output of a region to the demands of the colonizing state. The development of colonialism and the partition of Africa by the European colonial powers arrested the natural development of the African economic system. This couldn't be truer. The colonial era already put certain countries at a disadvantage as they, for years, had their resources plundered. For example, there's a report of how the British stole at least $45 trillion from India. India and Nigeria were, unfortunately, both victims of colonialism by Britain. This contributed at the beginning to the state of the nations afterward. Population. Another similarity between India and Nigeria is the very high population they have. As of 2024, they are the first and sixth most populous countries respectively. India has a population of over 1.4 billion people, while Nigeria is home to over 220 million people. These are insane numbers for developing economies. The world's poorest countries are remarkably known to have the largest family sizes and fertility rates. This further pushes them into a vicious cycle of poverty as the population explodes, but there are not enough resources to cater to them. According to Karan Singh, an Indian politician, he said, "My statement that development is the best contraceptive became widely known and often quoted. 20 years later, I am inclined to reverse this, and my position now is that contraception is the best development." Currently, Nigeria is home to over 11% of the global population living in extreme poverty. While almost 6% of the global population in extreme poverty, live in India. Together, just these two countries host almost 20% of the world's poorest. This can be linked directly to their high population. The more people you have, the more likely you have more poor people, isn't it? Especially for a developing country. Corruption. This is where you begin to see a difference between India and Nigeria. According to the Corruption Perception Index, India is a much less corrupt country than Nigeria. India currently ranks 93 on Transparency International's Corruption Index, while Nigeria's rank is 145. The higher your rank, the higher you're perceived to be corrupt. There is a straight line between the levels of corruption in a country and the level of poverty in that country, and you will see the impact of this difference between these two countries. Since 2020, India has consistently reduced the number of people living in extreme poverty, while this has consistently increased in Nigeria. Right now, India, a country with over 1.4 billion people, has just over 30 million extremely poor people. In 2023, it was 40 million and 46 million in 2022. See how this has been consistently reduced? Let's compare this to Nigeria. The number of extremely poor people has consistently increased in Nigeria. In 2022, there were over 68 million poor people in the country. This increased to 69 million in 2023, and now over 70 million people in 2024. The lesser corrupt country has shown some improvement, while the more corrupt one has only gotten worse. Corruption increases income inequality and poverty through lower economic growth. A corrupt system favors the rich and well-connected and ignores most of the population. Leadership. A major factor that sets apart the progress and decline witnessed by India and Nigeria respectively is the quality of leadership. There are a variety of factors that the leadership of a country is directly responsible for and can directly affect the level of poverty. Some of these factors include access to electricity, access to water, shelter, inflation rate, and so on. India has done much better in these aspects than Nigeria, and the results of that are visible. For example, rural access to piped water in India as of 2019 was 16.8%, but at present, it is 74.7%. Researchers agree that the reduced sickness from accessing safe water may have helped families earn more income. On the other hand, less than 30% of people had access to clean water in 2019. It isn't so much different today. How about inflation rates? Over the past decade until 2022, consumer price inflation in India averaged 5.5%, while in Nigeria, the inflation rate has averaged 13% over the same period. In 2022, Nigeria's inflation rate was 19%, while India's was 7%. When inflation increases, the prices of goods and services follow suit, but the nominal wage stays the same. This means that people can buy fewer things with the same amount of money. Therefore, people have less purchasing power, their money is worth less, and more people fall into extreme poverty. These two countries have consistently been named the poverty capitals of the world over the past decade. These have been impacted by a bunch of the listed factors. However, one of them has worked to change the narrative and has drastically reduced the number of people living in extreme poverty, while the other hasn't. What do you think about the current level of extreme poverty in India and Nigeria? Let us know in the comments section, and also remember to like and subscribe to our channel to help us hit our goal of 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year.